Hey, welcome back. Another Liberal was found to have broken ethics rules this past week. Greg Fergus, parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister, violated the Conflict of Interest Act by writing a letter to the CRTC in support of a television channel that was seeking mandatory carriage, something that MPs can do, but not parliamentary secretaries. After this latest rule breaking, Canada's Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion says he's calling for change. Dion is set to retire this week, and I spoke to him on Friday. Commissioner Dion, nice to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you very much.
I want to ask you about what you have sort of concluded after dealing with another Liberal, in this case a parliamentary secretary, who violated the ethics rules. What do you think is going on here in terms of the understanding of what the rules really are?
I've been thinking, for quite a while now, and I guess this is the proverbial drop that caused the bucket to overflow. That people do not take the time to actually spend a few hours and get a good briefing on what is possible and what's not possible under the Conflict of Interest Act. We've offered, we've met since I've been there. We've briefed 4,300 people. We have a trend whereby it's usually the most junior people who register as opposed to the most senior. So I think something else needs to be done because we keep repeating the same mistakes. And unless we change something to the recipe, the meal will end up being the same at the end of the day. That's what I've recommended to the government. I have yet to, we'll see what the government does, but I have made a strong recommendation that it be made mandatory for anyone upon appointment to cabinet or as a parliamentary secretary that they undergo training already in existence in my office, which would give them the overview they seem to lack. Some of them seem to lack.
I will say that some of the breaches of ethical rules seem to me to be pretty basic. The Morneau one is a good example. That seems to me a pretty basic thing that I don't even know that I would need to talk to you to know that that's probably not a position that I would have to put myself in. The Mary Ng case would be another. It seems pretty obvious that you don't give money to one of your best friends in contracts. So are you?
That's what I think too.
Yeah. Are you convinced that it's people not understanding the rules, or do you think it's people flouting the rules because they're not worried about consequences?
No, I don't think so. But it's only an impression I have based on what I've heard at the interview. For instance, we did interview Minister Ng. That it's not my impression that they made a conscious decision to cross a line, hoping that nothing would happen. Not at all. But spur of the moment, forgetting to reflect for a millisecond, essentially. That's what it is. Too many things too quickly, or you take the shortest route when you're under stress. Sometimes you take the shortest route without thinking about the consequences.
Does that indicate to you, though, that the consequences should be more severe? That you have very minimal opportunities to find people, and that's sort of it. So what about that? Should the consequences be more serious?
In my view, they should be, but the way the Act is constructed, my role is to oversee the implementation of the Act. The way it's constructed, my job is to investigate, make a determination as to whether a contravention has occurred. Then I give the PM a report. And his role, or the role of somebody he delegates within the government, is to decide what impact should that have on the person. The Act is clear, it's a condition of employment. Abiding by the Act is a condition of employment. Therefore, the Prime Minister might decide to impose a sanction of some sort, or to essentially revoke the appointment, or do what needs to be done in light of the gravity of the contravention under the Act. That's the way it works currently. It could work differently. I'm not sure that it's a good idea to have a third party, objective person decide in a vacuum what the consequences should be. Probably not a good idea. So the current system would work real well if I had the impression that an adequate review is made to determine what the consequences should be. I don't have that impression.
I don't know if you watched At Issue on Thursday night, but the consensus from my panelists seemed to be that part of the problem is that the leadership, the Prime Minister himself, was, because he has also had breaches, of course, of the Ethics Act, that was also setting a bad example for his ministers and creating a culture where people believe that there are no consequences to mistakes. What would you say to that idea?
Yeah, I heard Chantal Hébert and Andrew Coyne and Atla express that view. It makes sense to me. It does make sense to me.
So what do you do in that
It's almost
Yeah,
obvious.
so what do you do in that situation then? How do you as an ethics commissioner try and enforce the rules if you're working against that kind of culture?
I'm just one of the several players in the democratic system. So I keep investigating, I keep writing reports, and I keep making recommendations. That's all I can do.
What would you say to Canadians?
That's what I've
What would
done.
you say to Canadians, Commissioner, who might be discouraged that these events keep happening?
That I think the political process should resolve. If they are unhappy, if they are really concerned, then they should take action in the democratic process to see that there's a change being made. That's how democracy works.
And as someone who's leaving the public service after 40 plus years, I think, how are you thinking about this position and sort of public service and the political climate right now?
Oh, it's things evolve, things change, things get better, some things get worse. It's a constant evolution. It's no worse now than it was in 1980 when I joined. It's simply different. We have to resolve issues as they arise. And that's why I decided before taking retirement for medical reasons, as you know, that maybe I should leave a message to the effect that, things should change. Otherwise, we'll keep repeating the same pattern of each year having 3, 4, 5 people who are found to be breaching the Conflict of Interest Act. So I said to myself, one thing we can change easily is to force the people to actually have a much better understanding of what they cannot do under the Conflict of Interest Act. That's why we made the recommendation. The infrastructure is already in place to offer this training. We're talking about using modern technology as we are this morning for this interview. It's becoming quite easy to find a few hours to learn on something.
Well, Commissioner, yeah.
And so I wanted to leave that before going into retirement.
Commissioner, I hope the message has been received. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you for your public service and happy retirement, sir.
Thank you.